there are three phases that we are targeting in this particular course. One phase that will have, you know, focus on these four modules. So in the first module, will be covering Figma, will be covering PRD, product required document, and its official template, and Jira workflows, right? And the second module that we have, that you can see as well, we have Google Analytics, Amplitude, SQL queries, and API scoping as well. We'll be writing the SQL queries, we'll be checking the API scoping from the product management side, like what exactly a product manager needs to contribute in the API framing and API, finalization of the project. And then we have SaaS PRDs, group projects. So group project I have written over here, but we'll be mainly starting with the project making part right from this particular stage, where we'll be considering, the industry standard projects. So I'll ask your suggestion as well. So I'll give you two to three suggestions from maybe top products that are there into the market. You can come up with your ideas. Let's say I am giving you suggestions from the e-commerce market, right? And you will be interested in more into food tech market. So we can pick products based on your own understanding or your own interest, and then we can start building product requirement documentation and the UX part of these projects, right? So this is about the project building. And then we'll be covering all these UX journeys into the real world applications that we will be able to see at the end of the completion of the entire project that we'll be building, right? So we're targeting two projects that I have over mentioned over here. So we will be building on two SaaS tools right from the scratch, and we'll be completing the market research. We'll be doing the concept meeting, and we'll be finalizing what exactly we can build from the product point of view, right? So in this one-on-one training, we have a lack from the technical point of view. Like, we both of us are the product managers, right? We cannot have the database side of understanding, but I'll explain you what exactly the discussion look like with the database team and the front end team and what we call our management, right? So I believe you are completely able to understand. Okay, and then we have the application of generative AI and Scrum methodology and how teams are functioning, right? So I'll give you a quick understanding about the product life cycle in the next part of this particular call only, where we'll be understanding how cross-functional teams are getting in coordination among each other. And the second module that we are having, in which we'll be designing product, we will be having strategy frameworks, we'll be having root cause analysis framework and prioritization framework that we use in product strategy and in product management interviews, right? And secondly, we have enhancement sessions, right? So there are two parts: when we create a product right from the scratch, and when we generate enhancements in the existing product, right? And then how do we segment the product into the various market, and we'll be discussing the new market entry of an existing product as well. And we have frameworks. Then I have noted down over here user interviews. How do we proceed with the market analysis part? When we have a conceptualization part of the product requirement document, or maybe a product, in this particular process we take user interviews, right? So most of the time in the organizations, these user interviews will be two types of. One interview will be there from the internal stakeholder perspective, where you will take interview from maybe your sales team member, and the second type of interview will be there where you will be directly coordinating or maybe having an interaction with the end user, right? So we'll be discussing that as well. And how do we map user journey, and exactly the empathy part as well. And in the go to market strategy, I have also highlighted a couple of areas where we'll be discussing strategies. And then the third phase comes into the picture, where we are considering mock interviews. So there will be different type of mock interviews that we'll be having. So we will be considering case studies, we'll be considering technical round, and we will be having framework based uh, mock interviews, where I will be discussing. First we'll be discussing the entire flow of the interview, and then I'll be giving you the series of questions, and you have to behave as an interview candidate. I'll be taking the interview. Based on that interview, we will be coming to the feedback part as well. So this is the other area. And all the frameworks, all the product requirement documentation, all the strategy, all the tools, whatever we have done, every single part of it will come into the interview sections where we'll be discussing. And then we have a couple of other, analytics part, and maybe also that I'll be sharing with you. All right. So, okay, so these are some snapshots of what we will be able to achieve. I will be sharing this document with you. So I'll quickly move to the next part of, okay. Yes. So when I say we'll be making two products from end to end, that means from product perspective, whatever we can do. So there are two things that we
Okay.
from the product perspective. The first
Mm-hmm.
part is making the end to end product requirement document. The second part is
Uh-huh.
defining the end to end UX. UX is nothing but the
Uh-huh.
user interface, how the product will look like. Right? These two things we can do.
Right.
Right. In PRD, there are two sections, right? One section is from the product perspective. If you see, one section is how the product will look like. Second section is how the database will behave. That means if anything user is doing on the product, then how will my database respond to that query? Right? We are having an active interaction between front end and database in any particular SaaS tool.
Yes.
Right. So that we will be discussing.
Mhm.
And yeah, we will not be able to code the product. Reason being, we don't have development involved in this particular, yeah, course scope. Okay. But yeah, I will be
Okay. And
sharing.
then,
Yeah, that makes sense as well. You're right. You have any other question?
okay. Yeah. So then, did you already pre-choose these types of products, or can we customize them
No,
based
no,
off of the industry I'm trying to get experience in?
I didn't choose. I said earlier as well. I will be giving you suggestion of products from various industries, and you can choose
Got it.
among them, or maybe you can suggest. We'll be picking up. No issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
In this course, we have one advantage, that is I don't have predefined format of this course, right? So this course I'm making every single part of this course separately. I'm also separately creating content for this particular course so that I can you know give a more practical
Mhm.
experience. Okay. So this
Okay,
is my
perfect.
this is my first slide in which I have given the heading, which is product requirement documentation. This document is the only document that is the helping the source for the design team, for the engineering team, or for the management. So whatever you say, your product direction will be, or every single part of your product direction, product strategy, product fundamentals, product function, product database will be the part of product requirement documents, right? So
Hmm.
this document comes in three formats, right? Some companies are considering this document in three parts. They are considering first from the business perspective, they create it, they call it BRD, and they only focus on business side of the product. And for the functional side, they create a different document, they call it functional requirement document. And for the product requirement document, they are considering specific things with regards to the front end part in PRD, right? So nowadays in the modern era, people have started considering product requirement document, and one part of the product requirement document will be focused in the business side, and the other part will be focused in the functional, and the remaining part will be focused on the UX and other areas, right? So that's how PRD is getting considered in most of the major product companies. But yeah, we should always keep in mind, if in any interview people are asking about BRD, that is nothing but the business requirement document, and FRD, which is
Mm.
functional requirement document, we should always have this in mind, and we should always be speaking about
Mm.
business side of the product and functional side of the product along with the UX side of the product.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
with basic
Right.
flow, we have a concept in mind. That concept is getting more researched and researched, and then that is getting converted into the product requirement document, and then the teams start working on it from the development side of it. Okay. So
Okay.
I'll quickly go to the product life cycle part, and then I'll
Okay.
start explaining the product requirement document. Why I'm speaking about the product life cycle part first is because we need to understand the collaboration between team. How my PRD will add value to to these stakeholders. Okay, so this is my life cycle where I do nothing. First part is conceptualization, where we align with all the stakeholders. So whatever happens in a product life cycle, so the first part should always be conceptualization. So let's suppose we are considering one case over here. So we are, let's say, in a company where we are I'll take, for instance, I'll take an example of a NGO application, non-profit organization application, where we are raising crowd funds. Okay. So for this part,
Mm-hmm.
so when we are starting the application part of this NGO, or maybe say the crowdfunding part. So I'll take a specific example of this. So we're talking about the campaign creation of crowdfunding. So for the crowdfunding, whenever we are creating campaigns, so what is the concept part of this, right? So we'll be talking about the users, what type of users we are targeting for the crowdfunding campaign, and we'll be doing a little bit of research around the crowdfunding campaigns, existing market players will be talking about, and we'll be talking about, what are their functionalities, what are the parameters that they are considering, every single part of it, right? So that comes under the research part, and that research will give you concept understanding, right? So this is the one thing. And whenever we are having this research and concept done, we have a discussion with the team, and then we propose our research in front of the team, and team then align with each other, and they gives a thumbs up. So let's say you did a research on this campaign part, and you have data points, and you will present these data points in front of your management and whatever your stakeholders are, and let's say you are getting their thumbs up, then you start working with your PRD. Okay, this is one part. And then
Mm-hmm.
design collaboration, whatever you have defined as part of your functional requirement and user interaction, that thing is getting converted into the actual design. So when we will be discussing design,
Mm-hmm.
probably in the next class we'll be talking about the design, where we'll be writing the low fidelity UX for our PRD, right? So in that we'll discuss in more details. For now I'm telling you. So we'll define functional requirement for the first part. Let's say my crowdfunding campaign should be, the first step of the campaign should be the user personal details, maybe their phone number, their email IDs, and then second details would be what kind of accident or event happened in their life because of which they are trying to raise funds, right? So these are the functional requirements that you are trying to define. And the design collaboration will come into the picture, where you will help the design team in directing their design flow for this particular campaign. And then we have development part that comes into the picture, where UX will get converted to the UI, and database skeleton will also get into the picture, right? So when you say UX is the first part, that is giving the visibility that this is how my campaign of the this crowdfunding platform will look like. Then UI part will do nothing but convert it into the front end design, right? Front end design is mainly for the visuals of the user, how the user will interact with the application. And database design, with database is nothing but your skeleton that is controlling the data points that the user is able to see in the screen, right? So this comes under the third step that we have. And then we have quality assurance, right? So in quality assurance of the product management part, the responsibility of product managers is to ensure that whatever test cases we have defined in our product requirement documents are getting tested, right? So when we say they are tested or not, we need to check. Let's say we have defined 15, I'll talk about so the specific part of this crowdfunding campaign. So let's say you have defined one test case for your the input form of the crowdfunding. For, let's say, you have defined one case for your email field, that email should have validation of @ right? So this is your one particular test case. Now you should be checking this in detail with the QA team, that whether they are checking this email field or not, right? So this is one specific example. That's how you will define hundreds of such test cases, and the QA team needs to ensure that they are integrating and they are checking every single test case. Okay, that is the
Mm-hmm.
fourth step. And then we have launch. So before the launch, I think the one part that we have in this picture is the success metrics of the product, right? In our product requirement document, we define certain type of metrics by which we will be checking the success of the product. So for your crowdfunding campaign, you will be defining a metric called number of people, or maybe number of campaign created, right? So this is your metric.
Mm-hmm.
One of the nice metric is number of campaigns created. Now the submit button will track this, right? So let's say you will track how many times the submit button has been clicked by the user, and how many times this event has been triggered to the database access. That means
Mhm.
every time the user has filled the entire form and clicked on the submit button and the entry has been gone to the database, your event has been considered. That means your campaign has been created, right? So this is your success
Mhm.
metric. That success metric will give you a highlight about your maybe the next step of the product, what you need to do with the number of
Mhm.
campaigns that are there. And then we have post launch monitoring that I've already covered in the success metric part. Okay. And
Mhm.
the next part that we have already explained in terms of data driven decisions. So we'll take an example over here. So from this particular campaign that the user is creating, let's suppose we have a drop down field, and that drop down field is not getting okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So for this data-driven decision, I'm taking this example specifically just to give you an idea what exactly I mean by data-driven decision. So we have been taking an example of this crowdfunding application, and when the user is putting details in crowdfunding application, then let's say we have a drop-down menu, and this drop-down menu is not getting appropriate value that the user is expecting. In that case, user is taking more time, right? So our tracking platform is giving us an insight that this particular drop down is having some errors. So we get error logs, we get time that the user is spending on a particular field, right? So there are different type of monitoring that we have. One is the submission level monitoring, one is field level monitoring. When we talk about field level monitoring, then we get such insights. So from our dashboard, we are getting to know one thing, that this particular drop down is a challenge for my users. They are not getting enough data because they are spending a lot of time on it. Then the debugging part will come into the picture. I will be debugging with the help of the data that I've received, and based on that debugging, we will be able to understand that the database API is not functioning properly. Because when the database API doesn't function properly, then only is the drop down doesn't throw the actual values that they are expecting, that the users are expecting.
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
example is enough for
Mhm.
explaining you data driven decisions, but we'll be talking about it. We'll be checking out the Google Analytics dashboard as well for the reference, and then I think that Google Analytics dashboard will give us a bigger picture of how data are getting you know utilized by taking decisions. Okay. And then the second part, this
Mhm.
is ownership beyond launch, that I've already explained, that is correlation between data driven decision. Okay. So this is
Mhm.
it about product life cycle. When we start from the concept, and then we go from beyond the launch, and then we keep monitoring the product. After the monitoring becomes habit, then we come up with the enhancement of the product. Maybe sometimes we add more features, sometimes we remove some features that are creating an issue for my users. So yeah, that's about product life cycle. You have any questions in product life cycle?
No, it's very similar to the obviously the Scrum methodology and like
So
almost similar to the PMP life cycle.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, it becomes easy for me to explain you these things because the Scrum part, and I think the when we will be speaking about Jira, we'll be mostly speaking about the product side of it, because the creating
Mm.
stories, creating epics, creating bugs, every single thing that you already know, right? So we'll not be spending much time on that because you are already experienced in this particular part. I think that will be fine to you, right? We'll be focusing on areas where you are having less comfortability.